Hello everyone, it's Turin here, and welcome to another entry in our Community Cast series. In this game, we are going to have a 2v2 showdown between two Vampire Counts players and two Dwarf players. But guys, there is something indeed special about this cast. As you can probably already tell by looking at the Vampire Counts army, both of the Vampire players did auto-generate their army. So guys, we do have the mighty KEMMLER. It appears we do have the Devils as Farsoffen, but he actually got a pretty decent little front line. He's got the Tithe, he's got the Königstein Stalkers. Granted, he is most certainly going to be lacking in armor piercing. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the Vampire Counts got. So over here on the far side, it appears they got the Dire Pack, which isn't great against Dwarves. Not really much of a need against large units. But, if the Dwarfs decide to land some Gyrocopters on the ground, these guys are going to be MVPs. On top of that, he does have some Black Knights over here with the shock damage, and these aren't bad against Dwarves. I mean, any sort of mobile unit that can do some decent shock damage and then pull out is going to be, decent at harassing the back line. He does have the Devils as Farsoffen over here, which he did decide to Vanguard deploy. So I probably mangled that name, so guys, hopefully you can forgive me for that. In the front line, he has the Königstein Stalkers, some Skeleton Spearmen. Over here in the back, he does have Cryptors. He also got a Corpse Cart, but this is probably the best thing about the cast is that he did get the mighty KEMMLER. And he stayed true to the format, and he got the Winds of Death. He brought everything, so he didn't cut any corners here, guys. He does have a Corpse Cart with the Balefire Lodestone back here, which is going to buff these nearby troops. Some Fellbats. And it looks like for the rest of the army, they got a lot of Air Force units. So they got several groups of Vargeist, it looks like, some Fellbats. In the front line, we do have some Black Knights with, those guys are juiced up. Look at that, a Silver Chevron. You can already see the Dwarf Firepower coming in here. But this is definitely a nice gift right here. The Graveguard with great weapons are going to be great against the Dwarves, no pun intended. Some more Graveguard over here, so a little bit more of a durable front line on this side. He also was kind of given a Necromancer here, which he has all the spells, and then of course Vlad von Karstein. So they're going to be very pressed for Winds of Magic, but hey, on that same note, at least they do have all of these spells at their disposal. Front line of zombies, and guys, the mighty Black Coach has made an appearance, so this is definitely a staple of any of my casts. For these random games, you definitely have to have a Black Coach, and if you do have one, I will most likely cast it. Over here, we got some Blood Knights, and we do have Black Knights, so a lot of mobility at least, and then another group of Direwolves. So for the Dwarf players, it looks like they have a pretty uniform army here, front line of Longbeards who are supported by Quarrelers with great weapons, so that's not a bad option when you're facing off against mobile factions who are going to be coming in with Cav, because if your Quarrelers do get jumped by Cav, they can put up a little bit more of a fight. Some Hammers over here on the far side, two groups of Slayers and a bunch of Cannons led by Ungrim and a Thane. For this Dwarf player, he actually has a big missile line. He has a bunch of Thunders, he has some Gyrocopters, and for his melee core, he has a bunch of Longbeards mixed in with some Ironbreakers actually here in the middle. So the one issue with this Dwarf army is he's going to fall back, right? So he's just going to pull these back when the fighting starts. But with all the mobility here, with the mighty Black Coach and then all these Vargeist, there's no way he's going to be able to protect that back line. But hopefully Ungrim can get in there and do his thing. This Dwarf player has a little bit more of a Helm's Deep going on, but the issue with his deployment is that these cannons are right up against the back of these units, and they're going to get obstructed really hard and really fast once the opponent's forces get closer. So without further ado, let's get this battle rolling. So over here on the far side, you can see the Devils are coming around the back, and you can see the cannons are adjusting to shoot at them, I think. No, they're actually just turning to shoot at the front line. So they're probably going to be targeting, some of these Graveguard and things like that. Granted, what they should be targeting, in my opinion, is the Cryptors are an okay target. The Cav are also a very good choice, because with Dwarves, one of the first things you want to do, if possible, is remove the, mobility. Also targeting this Corpse Cart would be a pretty good choice, because once it gets, in the fighting, it's going to be very hard to target. So you can see those cannon pieces are doing some decent work, kind of shooting down these Cryptors over here on the far side. And the Dwarf player over here appears to be kind of reforming ranks, so I think they're both just turning and trying to square up against the Vampire Counts, because their current positioning is a little bit precarious because the Vampires are taking advantage of their mobility, and you can see they're shifting their forces to kind of 2v1 this Dwarf player. So anytime you're doing a matchup like this and you are facing two Dwarves, I would just suggest kind of overloading one flank, because most Dwarf players, in general, aren't terribly used to having to move a lot, because generally the fighting comes to them. So, but thankfully this Dwarf player for them is kind of reforming ranks and is definitely doing a pretty good job of doing that. But still, these guys are just going to swarm this flank. You can see just the hordes of Fellbats. We do have the Vargeist, just all kinds of funny business coming over here. But this Dwarf player is also reforming ranks, so pretty well played to both of these guys in repositioning here. But this cannon line is just makes me hurt. It just hurts, They need to move back for sure, because he's missing out on so much value. That's such a big investment there, just two cannons that are essentially just fully obstructed. So over here on the far side, you can see the Dwarven firing line is just tearing into these zombies, just doing some massive damage. Granted, I mean, it's 150 resources. That ammunition probably isn't even worth killing these zombies, but regardless, they're just getting gunned down right here, taking the full might of the Dwarven firing line, but the mighty Black Coach is advancing. It has no fear. It's just pushing right up the pipe, and you guys can see it's going in hot. Man, there is no remorse here, no pity. This thing is just going for these Thunders. And these Longbeards here aren't braced, guys, so the mighty Coach is going to get in there and do some pretty good work. So you can see, boom, it just knocks those Dwarves over as it comes in. You can see the artillery piece definitely not being very helpful. But the Slayers are nearby, so hopefully they can get in there and stop. But guys, the coach is actually really hard to deal with for the dwarves. I mean, any chariots are, so you definitely want to get some missile fire, and he's over chasing a little bit here. And you can see the fellbats and all kinds of units are pressuring from the flank. But these Vargeist up here are kind of just sitting and waiting for the Vampire Count force to kind of arrive, and they're taking a ton of Quarreler fire. And, you know, Vargeist do take quite a bit of damage against Quarreler and missile fire in general because they only have 10 armor. So Quarrelers are going to do some pretty good work. You can also see the blasting charges being wasted on these zombies, unfortunately. So guys, anytime you are using Iron Breakers and the Vampire Counts do charge in, I mean, you can use it if you want to get rid of their fodder quickly, but I like to save it and use it on like Graveguard and things like that, because these guys are going to just crumble against the Iron Breakers really quick anyways. So in the back line, we see a lot of mayhem. We see some Fellbats. We see some Vargeist, the Devils here, just pushing through these units. Also, we have some Fellbats who've jumped these Quarrelers, but they'll be able to beat them because Dwarf infantry units or missile units are pretty strong, you know, generally speaking. In the front line, we do have an engagement between some of these Graveguard here who are going to fight against Longbeards, and neither of them have armor piercing, so this is going to be a very atrocious fight. You can see this cannon crew decides like, we don't need to shoot. Let's get in there and just ram them with our cannon. So that thing's getting right there in the front. Over here on the far side, we do have a bunch of Cryptors and all kinds of funny business coming around, and the mighty KEMMLER is lurking somewhere nearby, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go ahead and take an overhead view and see where he is. So there he is. The KEMMLER is running up and around the side. He's probably going to be, I hope he uses the Winds of Death. That would definitely be awesome because of how bunched up these forces are. Over here on the far side, you can see these Slayers are getting in here. Oh, and it looks like Vlad is casting a Winds of Death ability. So I think he's, let's go ahead and slow mode. Oh man, and it gets a bunch of those Slayers. Granted, that didn't do too much damage. And it does get through into some of these Longbeards, but he really, you know, probably wanted to be over here and just shoot down the line. But that's actually going to do some okay work against those Quarrelers. You can see they're kind of getting mopped up a little bit, but nothing terribly devastating. So, you know, always a good time trying to get that kind of action in there. Vlad is very good at casting Winds of Death because he can get like up and around the flank on the side, and then he's very durable. So overextending him isn't going to be like that big of a liability. And you can just see the blasting charges is coming and just massacring these zombies. It's just pure carnage. But again, not the best target for that, although there could be a case made for that because, you know, getting rid of fodder definitely frees up your dwarf missiles and other things like that. You can also see the Thunders over here, you know, fairly safe out there, but there are some Hounds waiting on the far side, probably going to get a little bit of a flank on. The Devils are taking quite a bit of damage, so definitely not fun for them. They're probably getting shot out of the sky pretty efficiently. Let's go ahead and see how much HP they have. So only 1200 HP. And if these Thunders get like one more volley, you're probably going to see 2 or 3 of these models go down. But unfortunately, the Devils are going to get in there and get a great charge. And they come in and just wreck this Dwarven line. You can see they're getting decapitated. And even though they're not, you know, considered AP units, they have 100 weapon strength, probably about 40 of which is armor piercing. And that's more than enough to do some pretty good burst damage here. So the Thunders aren't as like heavily armored as some Dwarf infantry. They only have 80, so you can get through and do some okay work there. Over here on the far side, you can see it's just kind of a mosh pit, but unfortunately for the dwarf player, this corpse guard right here is, you know, making these zombies somewhat resilient. Let's go ahead and see what the zombie stats are. So these skeleton spearmen actually have 24 melee attack, which is really good for how cheap they are. And you can see this is just a pure mosh pit, and that's one of the issues with like kind of having your formation in this way. Is that when you get this bunched up, the vampire counts can essentially bog down your entire missile and artillery line with one zombie summon. So I definitely recommend kind of like spreading out, because when you do that, you can then use what am I trying to say? The crossfire. So you can have your missile units spread out and they can cover one another, so they're not all getting mucked up at once. But the Slayers are coming in here in the back, and they're going to get a good little engagement here on some of these cav here. They're also getting on the Devils as well as the Fellbats, so that's going to be some good kills for these Slayers. Definitely one of the more ideal targets for them. But zombies are so good at mucking down Slayers because, you know, Slayers have almost no defensive stats. Let's see, they have, let me go ahead and find the Slayer tooltip. So the Slayers have 0 armor, and their melee defense is actually 33, which isn't horrible, but still the zombies, you know, eventually will drag them down into the pit. So the mighty KEMMLER over here is doing his thing. It looks like he's trying to, I'm sure, I've seen him throw quite a few karate kicks. So let's actually watch him here for a second and see if he decides to throw one. But no, he's just going with his standard attack animations, using that Chaos Tomb Blade, which looks, that's such a cool looking sword. But anyways, guys, let's go ahead and zoom up here and see what's going on. Over here on the far side, you can see the Black Knights with Lances are going to be coming in and getting a great rear charge on these poor Dwarves. You guys can see the bounce. That was a little bit lackluster, but they do get in over here a little bit, sandwiching them between these Crypt Horrors, which is definitely not where they want to be. Over here, the mighty Slayer King is definitely doing his people proud. He's kind of fighting off both Vlad and this Necromancer at once. And I think Ungrim could probably beat Vlad. Granted, Vlad does have the healing, but Ungrim is very heavily armored. Vlad has low AP, and he does, you know, has heavy armor piercing damage, of course. So that would be an interesting thing to test, but I'm pretty sure Ungrim would win in a straight up fight, because he does have that death blow. So when units get low, Ungrim does get a bonus to his attack stats, which is pretty cool. Over here, some Thunders have been compromised by these Knights, but the Slayers are pushing over and getting a good little engagement on them. I love their leaping attacks, like the flying jump kicks, as well as the ones where they just like leap forward and just do like a belly flop and slam the guys. So the Black Knights do get driven off. You can see some of them are being dragged down by these Thunders, who took almost no damage. So unfortunately for these guys, they're probably just going to get capped now by these Thunders, who are back online. it looks like there is a little bit of a decent dwarven firing line. So they have some Corlers as well as some Thunder shooting into this horde of Blood Knights and Lances. My goodness, this is just like the Rohirrim over here. They're going to be charging through, probably running over these Slayers on their way to some more juicy targets. Hopefully they don't sit here and fight these guys. That would be really bad. They are taking a lot of damage too. But the Black Knights in the back with the mighty silver chevrons and their 8 kills are going to be pushing in, probably going to clean up some of these missile units in the back. And these guys should be able to finish off these. Well, I think the Dwarves would probably still win in a sustained fight, but you can see they're just going to get run through here. So there's tons of cav charges this game, and it's good. Man, I love these auto-gen casts. You get to just see all these janky units you don't normally get to see. So the Black Coach in here also performing pretty well. I'm sure it probably has at least 70 kills by now. So let's look. It actually has 96. So Black Coaches, guys, against the Dwarves are not bad. So typically, you know, it does have 60 armor. You want to find some units like Longbeards or Dwarf Warriors and just kind of sit it there and then pull out, maybe use an Invocation of Nehek, pull it into your blob of infantry and try and heal it. This thing could easily get, you know, 150, 200 kills by the time the battle's over if it doesn't like sit and just take a beating. Granted, that's kind of the irony of it, is that Black Coaches need to sit to be strong. So you got to do a little bit of fancy footwork there. So the Dwarven firing line in the back is still doing a pretty good job of shooting down these Blood Knights, and you can see the mighty Ungrim is leading his Slayer throng over here, which are chasing off these Blood Knights, and man, these Blood Knights got wrecked. They definitely don't have much of a role against Dwarves with their ants are large, but still, the Black Knights with Lances 71 kills, and the Blood Knights only have 35. So you know, a little bit of good stats over there out of those Vampire Count cav. But in the pits here, we still do have the mighty Slayer King, who is surrounded, just covered in blood. His Dawi have essentially abandoned him here, unfortunately, but he's going to do a pretty good job with his 120 armor, just kind of maintaining this beatdown. And I think he was able to actually chase off the Necromancer, because yeah, the Necromancer's almost dead. So I think Ungrim actually was able to get some great attacks on him. Over just taking an overarching look at things, the bounce of power is still somewhat even, so we have about 925 vampires to the 880 Dawi, so there still is a big Dawi force over here. You can see Ungrim is here, and who is the Dwarf Lord for the other army? I think I actually missed that. Is it double Ungrim? Oh, yeah, it is double Ungrim. So some Unbreakable Lord, so this Ungrim right here is fighting off the Necromancer as well as Vlad. He definitely just wants to turn around. He could just literally one-shot that Necromancer, but it looks like his AI was pathing him somewhere else. The Corpse Cart here, it's so funny, it's so slow, but the Dwarves can't even like catch it with you know, what they have left on the battlefield. So you can see this Ungrim here has had a Master of Beguilement used on him, and unfortunately the Vampire Count's forces do appear to have a pretty good surround on him. He's being attacked by 2 heroic units, but man, he gets a good attack on that Necromancer, who has about 700 HP, but if he gets 1 or 2 more attacks, it might send him crumbling. So there goes that attack, but it looks like it didn't quite make square contact, which is unfortunate. Over here, the Dwarves actually have a pretty good little pocket of resistance. You can see these Slayers are being led by the Slayer King, and look how much bigger he is. I actually never noticed that, but he's going to get in here, and they should be able to beat back these Graveguard and these zombies, crumble the line, and then go to the aid of their Dawi forces on the flank of this battlefield, which are in very, very dire circumstances here. So 11 Slayers over there. There are some Longbeards in the back. Some Corlers online, in fact, have 52 kills, which is not bad. And also over here, unfortunately, the Grudge Killer has been shut down by these Black Knights, who have 117 kills. And some Hammers do come in, but man, they took a ton of charge damage right there. I mean, they look like they just got wrecked. But a few of these Black Knights should get dragged down once the Hammers get up, and that would be something I'd like to see them change in this game, is to make it so like infantry and units, when they get knocked over, get up quicker. So like if you're cycle charging like an Ungrim, he could just like hop back to his feet and at least counterattack you once before you're able to squeak away. So anyways, these Black Knights here appear to be crumbling. You can see a lot of them being dragged down, and it looks like one of the Dwarf Lords has been slain, so Ungrim Iron Fist has fallen to the horde of vampires over here. This Thane, unfortunately, is also surrounded. He's wavering, and things are not looking good. Granted, there is a contingent of Dwarves here who are still in pretty good shape, and you can see they're going to be intercepting the Slayers, and these Ironbreakers here are going to push in and try and do some decent damage against these Cryptors, who look pretty pissed off over here. Man, they got some cool attack animations, but I think one of the coolest animations I've seen is the one where Belegar takes down a Cryptor. So he has like a custom animation, and he actually like jumps on its head and like tackles it to the ground. It is so cool. You guys probably saw in Total War Warhammer 2 in the trailer, they're going to have well, not the trailer, but the gameplay footage where Kroq-Gar actually like tackles the dragon, and the dragon like picks him up and drops him. There's some really neat stuff. So the Vampire Count, sensing that there's a pretty strong line of Thunders back here, did summon some zombies, so really well played by the Vampire Count's players over here with their random gen armies. Because if this Thunder line had been left sitting, I think the Dwarves could have pulled it back, you know, in this particular moment of the battle, considering the bounce of power is, of course, in the Vampire Count's favor, but it's not out of reach. You can see that last Black Knight crumbles there. So yeah, the Dwarves have a lot of stuff on the periphery. They got a big missile line, so if these like Thunders had just been like thumping away in here, shooting at Vlad and, you know, going after Heinrich, I think that could have been pretty good. So anyways, the battle is just continuing. It's just a wild fight. You can see Ungrim Iron Fist here in the pits, just doing everything he can, just trying to chop down this Vlad. It looks like he is getting a great attack in the back. And Vlad takes some serious damage. You can also see Heinrich's in a very dangerous situation here. He does not want to be fighting Ungrim, because Ungrim can honestly just annihilate Heinrich with his 15 armor and just extremely low defensive stats. Granted, how is his melee defense 48? He must have had some sort of a leadership buff or something popped. I don't get that, man. That's incredibly high. I was definitely expecting a lot less from him, but Anyways, Ungrim's going to get in there, and you can see he does get a good little attack, doing some okay damage. Some Fellbats up in the air fighting this Gyrocopter, it appears, and Fellbats are so good against Gyrocopters. Even though they don't do well against the armor, they can just swarm them and, you know, make them so ineffective. Let's actually see how much damage these are health. Yes, and look, they actually break those 2 Gyrocopters, which is pretty insane. So those Fellbats are definitely some serious MVPs, having racked up 14 kills. So the vampire counts here are just continuing to fight. You can see the zombies in the back are being fended off by the Slayers, but this is not what you want to be doing, because every second counts here, guys. You know, the Dwarves fighting here in the pocket, they don't have much, you know, much left in the tank. They do have this corpse cart here, you know, and this perpetual healing across all these vampire count units, and a lot of the Ironbreakers and Dwarf infantry are starting to break, but you can see Ungrim is doing a bit of a tactical retreat, having to run away here, but the zombies are just coming in mass. So this is definitely tough, just more and more troops pouring onto the battlefield. You can see the balance of power about 65-70% in the favor of the vampire counts. And over here we do have a Thane who's kind of fending off and backing up some of these Longbeards with great weapons. But, you know, still, these zombies are just tar pitting, and I wonder how many kills they have. Oh, those are skeleton warriors. Okay, I was like 28 kills, but these zombies actually have 12 kills, which is pretty crazy. So the mighty KEMMLER and this White King are just chasing down Ungrim Iron Fist over here on the far side. But Ungrim, his move speed's 32, and the White King is 33. And KEMMLER appears to be actually 40, so he's pretty quick, kind of like a Vlad von... Oh, no, that was Vlad. I was looking at the wrong unit. So he's 35, which is a little bit faster than, you know, your standard infantry lord. So they get in here, and KEMMLER with his Chaos Tomb Blade is just tag teaming with Papa Vlad here. It looks like he does do a little bit of a friendly whack right there. But they are being chased down by a bunch of Ironbreakers, but there's just hordes of undead back here. But still, there's 34 Hammerers here. We do have 43 Quarterlers with great weapons back here. More Ironbreakers in the back, and if this Grudge Thrower can get back online, that would be pretty nice. It looks like the Dwarves... Oh, unfortunately, I think they must be out of ammunition. That's what it is. I was wondering why they were charging in. So over here, the Corpse Guard is kind of holding down this pocket, making these Sternsmen much stronger, bringing their melee attack to 38, their melee defense to 35, but there's just some straight up Benny Hill action going on over here. So Ungrim is having to run. Definitely a little disgraceful, but from a tactical perspective, it is their best choice by far. So the Slayers go in here, and they're going to have a desperate last stand versus these powerful ancient vampires. Well, I should say one. I think this is just a necromancer, but man, Vlad and the boys are unfortunately just massacring them. You can see this lone Slayer. He's putting up a pretty good fight. He actually takes a blow from the... Oh man, he just got done halved. If any of you guys have seen that, what's that movie? One of you guys in the comment section will have to let me know where it's like the one making fun of the life of Johnny Cash with like all those Will Ferrell-esque actors. And where the guy's like, I done got halved. But anyways, over here we do have Heinrich who's fighting against a Thane, and the Thane will definitely beat the brakes off Heinrich with his low armor and relatively low HP. So you can see he's having a run here, and man, a nice shield dash from that Thane sends Heinrich pretty darn low. So he's just going to get chased down by this guy. You can see some supporting fire over here from these Quarterlers doing some pretty good work. But man, this Vlad von Karstein, you know, kind of goon squad here is going to be very tough to stop. That's the one big issue. I don't think the Dwarves have enough stopping power, and right as I say that, like a group of Thunderers is just raining down. But these Thunderers, 23 models, and we have some Quarterlers here who are almost out of ammunition, but I don't think they're going to have quite enough to get Vlad, because he still does have a little bit of healing left. You can see he's perpetually healing, but that's a lot of good fire. I think they are targeting the Necromancer there, who probably will crumble. Let's actually look. So the Necromancer has about 500 HP. He is indeed at his healing cap, so they should be able to get him down here in just a moment, hopefully for the Dwarves. But yeah, this Thunder line of 38 is reinforcing, and this one of 23. So that's, you know, almost... I wouldn't say it's like, you know, equivocal to like a full group, but it's, you know, somewhat close there. So these Hammers are shattered, unfortunately. You can see Ungrim is kind of smells blood in the water, so I think he's going in for his desperate last stand. He's had enough fun watching, but this Necromancer is definitely not in good shape at about 200 HP. But he does shatter those Ironbreakers, which is pretty good for the Vampire counts, obviously, because 29 Ironbreakers is a pretty decent little pocket. But it looks like all the Dwarf forces are unfortunately shattering right now, which is tough because they still had a Thane. You know, they had some Quarterlers and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like they could have kept fighting if they didn't shatter like that. And that's definitely something that kind of bothers me about a lot of games. I think like the army losses should be, I don't know if it should be. I don't really know the internal workings of things, but I've had many games where I felt like I could potentially come back when my army just shatters. But I guess that makes sense for like some units that are just like I played games against Dwarves where I just like can't kill their lord, and I just kind of like beat them through shattering their army. But I still think the Vampire counts would have won this, considering they have a full health White King or pretty much a full health Vlad, but still it would have been fun to see it play out a little bit more. So Ungrim Iron Fist unfortunately does go down. He gets surrounded by the White King and some zombies and does fulfill his oath. So yeah, very well played, everyone. Thank you, Uznia, for sending this replay. Appreciate it, man. It was a very fun cast. Definitely want to see some more 2v2 autocasts. If you guys want to send me some of those, it's definitely a little bit more enticing than casting like just a standard, 2v2 game, because personally I prefer to watch 1v1s. Well, you guys let me know if you prefer that or if you'd like to see more team games, but the auto-generated casting definitely puts a fun spin on 2v2. So again, thank you to Uznia for sending me the cast. Well played to everyone, and hope you guys enjoyed that community cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.